Hello, everyone, and my name is Min, and I'm the Chief of the Sustainable Development Goals Monitoring Section at the Statistical Division of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. I'm responsible for the program of the global monitoring of the progress towards the SDGs. So thank you very much to the Ethos Institute for inviting me to present the main finding of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Report 2022 at the Ethos Conference 2022. So this annual progress report is prepared by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs in collaboration with the entire UN statistical system, consisting of more than 50 international organizations. So using the latest available data and estimates, the report shows that the SDGs are in grave jeopardy due to multiple cascading and intersecting crises, with COVID-19, climate change, and conflicts predominating. This in turn impacts all the SDGs, creating spin-off crises in food and nutrition, health, education, the environment, and peace and security. This confluence of crises threatens not only the achievement of the SDGs, but literally our own very survival. The only way out of the global crisis requires transformational changes guided by the SDG, which is the world's blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and our planet. So first, let's look at the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the SDG. The COVID pandemic is truly one of the biggest global crises of our time, causing catastrophic effects on people's lives and livelihoods worldwide. Nearly 15 million people died directly or indirectly due to COVID-19 in the first 2 years of the pandemic. More than 4 years of global progress on the eradication of extreme poverty was wiped out, and 93 million more people were pushed back into extreme poverty in the first year of the pandemic. An additional 115 million people faced hunger in 2021 compared to 2019. Meanwhile, an estimated 147 million children missed more than half of their in-person instructions over the past 2 years, and 24 million learners, especially girls, are at risk not returning to school. The pandemic has severely disrupted essential health services, shortened life expectancy, triggered an increase in the prevalence of anxiety and depression, and undone years of progress in many health areas. For example, impacts in health shows a drop in immunizations for the first time in 10 years, and a rise in deaths from malaria and the TBs. Second, the increased numbers of conflicts also affects the achievement of the SDGs. Pleas for global peace are growing louder as the world witnesses the largest number of violent conflicts since World War II. A record 100 million people had been forcibly displaced worldwide as of May 2022. This staggering figure will increase along with the widening repercussions of the war in Ukraine. The invasion of Ukraine has caused food, fuel, and fertilizer prices to skyrocket, disrupted supply chains and global trade, and roiled financial markets. It's estimated that the war could cut global economic growth by 0.9 percentage points in 2022 and have further implications for aid flows. So climate change is also humanity's code red warning, impacting across all the SDGs. Humanity is currently on the verge of a climate catastrophe, and its impacts are already being witnessed and felt by billions of people across the world. So in 2021, energy-related CO2 emissions rose by 6%, reaching their highest level ever and completely wiping out pandemic-related declines. In order to stave off the worst impacts, global greenhouse gas emissions will need to peak before 2025 and then declined by 43% by 2030, falling to net zero by 2050. However, on the current voluntary national commitments for climate action, greenhouse gas emissions are predicted to rise by nearly 14% by 2030. Increased heat waves, droughts, and floods caused by climate change are already affecting every region and almost everyone around the globe, and causing potentially irreversible changes in global ecosystems. So it's projected that medium to large scale disaster events could reach 560 a year by 2030. This is a 40% increase from 2015. Also, by 2030, an estimated 700 million people will be at risk of displacement by drought alone. So the world's most vulnerable countries and population groups are disproportionately impacted by the confluence of crises. Least developed countries are struggling with weak economic growth, worsening unemployment rate, rising inflations, major supply chain disruption, and unsustainable debt. As always, women, children, and other vulnerable populations are bearing the brunt of the crisis. Child labor and child marriage are on the rise. So worldwide, 160 million children were already engaged in child labor in early 2020, which is equivalent to 1 in 10 children. So globally, 9 million additional children are at risk of being pushed into child labor by the end of 2022 compared to 2020 as a result of rising poverty driven by the pandemic. Young people continue to have higher unemployment rates than before the pandemic. Women struggle with the constraints of lost jobs and livelihoods, derailed schooling, and increased the burden of unpaid care work at home. Meanwhile, existing evidence suggests that domestic violence has been exacerbated by the pandemic. To stay ahead of this crisis, we need to understand where we are and where we are headed, and that will require significant investment in our data and information infrastructures. Without timely, high quality, and disaggregated data, targeted policies, programs, and resources aims at protecting people during this most challenging time will inevitably fall short. So this report also highlights that we still lack a sufficient, timely, and disaggregated data in many areas. Investment in data and information infrastructure, multitude of crises that the world is facing across the economic, social, health, environmental, and peace and security spectrums. The severity and scale of the challenges before us require accelerated global scale action that is committed to and follows the SDG roadmap. The pandemic, the climate crisis, and other crises should serve as catalyst for political, economic, and social transformative changes, force new ways of thinking, and open up new opportunities. COVID-19 responses have accelerated the adoption of digital technologies and led to embrace innovative approaches. The number of internet users surged by 782 million in the past 2 years. Most industries using medium and high technologies have already returned to pre-pandemic production levels. There also have been immense community resilience and a rapid expansion of social protection. To get back on track with the global goals laid out in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which was adopted unanimously by the United Nations member states in 2015, governments, cities, businesses, industries, and citizens must take advantage of the recovery opportunity to adopt low carbon, resilient, and inclusive development pathway that will reduce carbon emissions, conserve natural resources, create better jobs, advance gender equality, and tackle growing inequalities. Just as the impact of crisis is compounded when they are linked, so are the solutions. In taking action to strengthen social protection systems and make them permanent, improve public services, and deliver them to those most in need first, and invest in clean renewable energy, we address the root causes of increasing inequality, environmental degradation, and climate change. We know the solutions, and we have the roadmap to guide us in weathering the storm and coming out stronger and better together. So thank you very much for your attention. So the SDG Report 2022 is available in all 6 UN official languages. It's provide a progress review on all 17 goals, covering over 100 indicators using the latest data. So you can find more information on our website. So I will end with a quote from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. We must rise higher to rescue the SDGs and stay true to our promise of a world of peace, dignity, and prosperity on a healthy planet. Thank you very much.